And it's on. Hello, how you doing it?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing. This is Founders Time podcast, and we have the amazing Tim Ringgold with us. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Hello. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I am a music therapist. I live in Southern California. I'm a lot of things, actually. One of the things I am is a music therapist. Another thing I am is a dad. I'm also a husband, and I'm a giant fan of Arsenal Football Club in England.
Cool. So, what inspired you to be a music therapist and to use that to inspire others and to help others?
I've been a musician my whole life. My first time I sang was I was 4. I was like kindergarten, they call it. It was my first solo, and I remember in elementary school, like walking out on stage, and the stage was hollow because that's where they would hide all the like seats under the stage. And I remember this feeling like thump, thump, thump when you walk across the stage versus when you walk across, just the concrete or the ceramic. And I was like, ooh, it was like something important's about to happen. And I really liked it. And I know a lot of people don't like being on stage, but I felt enjoyed it. Anyone who's known me my whole life has, joked, just poked fun at me for just like being like a star, like the talent, just liking to be with the spotlight. And that's always been just comfortable for me. So I just started out that way. And by the time I was 16, I was singing in St. Peter's Square as a Catholic during Holy Week for Pope John Paul II, singing a solo in front of about 13,000, Catholic pilgrims, just like myself from around the world. And it was amazing because I could hear my voice like bouncing around the colonnades of St. Peter's Square. And it was like, this is the coolest thing ever. But it wasn't until like one of the lowest moments in my life that I really understood the healing power of music, which when I was 22, I grew up in a really stable household in a really stable small town in Connecticut, about an hour and a half out in New York City. My family's from Brooklyn, and out in the woods. And while I was out at a concert, ironically, seeing some live music, my 5 best friends were murdered by 3 of their landlords, and 2 of the guys were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was horrible, horrible experience. And, having to go to 5 funerals in 4 days is not something I recommend for people. It was certainly, it qualified as a traumatic experience, probably the first real trauma I'd ever, been through. And what happened was kind of remarkable because I was the musician in my friend group. And so I would always bring my guitar everywhere we hung. And I would play open mic night at the saloon. Yes, we had a saloon. That's how small my town was. We had 2 bars. We had a saloon and a roadhouse. No joke. And I would dedicate songs for my friends and I'd sing for them. And, we'd have a tear in our beer. And I wrote a song about my small town the first time I ever left it in 1990. And so I would always just honor my friends with music. So when they died, the only thing I could think of was playing music at their funerals. That was the only way I knew how to say goodbye. So I played the song I had written about my hometown and about them that I used to play to them. And it was terrible. It was a horrible, painful experience for me. But for my community, they were so healed by the music. And person after person after person came up to me to tell me that. And then they wrote a paper or an article in our local newspaper about it. I didn't understand what they were talking about because I wasn't having the same experience providing the music as they were having listening to the music. It was 2 different experiences. And so the night of the last funeral, one of my 2 remaining friends asked me if I wanted to go see some live music. And I was like, hell yeah. So we went to a club to see this famous musician play. I'd never heard him, but I knew he was a great guitarist. And for 2 hours, I was totally at peace, like no pain. And it was the first peace I had had while awake in a week, because all week, all I would do is, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, pornography, food, cable, everything I could put in my system to numb pain, everything I could find, I ingested to try to numb the trauma, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. But the music did, of all things. And it wasn't even recorded music, because we'd been listening to recorded music while we were getting all hammered. It was seeing the concert and being in the presence of live music was what took the pain away. And I went up to the musician afterwards and I told him the story. And I said, listen, man, there are reasons you played this show that you know of, but here's one you didn't. And I've been in hell for the last week, and you're the first person to bring me out. Thank you. And I touched his chest and I gave him the piece through my arm, like a little poof, like a little energy. And he started crying right in front of like all these fans. We had this super powerful moment. And in that moment, I understood what my community was talking about when they were receiving my music at my friends' funerals. I was now on the receiving end of the music. It's kind of like a doctor being doctored. And I was like, oh, I get it. This is it. And in that moment, I was like, well, that's it. This is what I'm doing the rest of my life. And I just decided, like, it was just clear through this experience to discover the true power of music. And as I have told this story, so many times, and I've traveled the world and I've spoken to audiences all over the country, and I talk about the healing power of music, I've never met anybody who doesn't know what I'm already talking about. We all prescribe ourselves music. That's what a playlist is. That's what a mixtape was back in the day when we were kids. We're prescribing ourselves this music in order to treat comfort, whether it's mood or physical pain, emotional, social pain, spiritual pain, or we're just trying to activate ourselves at a certain level that the music kind of unlocks, that without we just don't reach. So for me, like when I'm talking to audiences, I'll ask them, tell me about your playlists. Why do you make a playlist? Like shout out what they are. And people will be like, road trip, commuting, cleaning, studying, working, right? They'll all exercising, right? All these things allows us to do better. And so it's been a funny journey because I'm talking about something everybody already knows, but they don't know why. They don't know why music works the way it works. They just know that it works. And so my degree, I went back to school to get a degree in music therapy to be able to treat people clinically. And most of my degree was just unlocking how music works, what it does to the brain, what it does to the nervous system. And then how, with that knowledge, now I can take music and I can point it like a, surgical tool at very specific issues that people are having in a very specific way to help them with what they're struggling with.
And that's so important. Because I think we all know it, but we don't remember to feel it. And that's what happens when the music starts playing.
That's it.
A lot of soldiers that come back with PTSD, that's the medical pill for them. It's music.
Absolutely. For vets using music right now in both in music therapy and in volunteer music songwriting programs and music lessons programs. There's a great one in San Diego, and I think it's nationwide, but I had a friend here who was involved in it called Guitars for Vets. And they taught, songwriting to the guitarists. And what's really powerful about music and in music therapy, we treat PTSD with drumming, which is, people think it's kind of counterintuitive, like all the loud music and the banging would be triggering. But actually, because trauma is an embodied experience, the energy, the emotion, which is energy in motion, that's involved in trauma gets buried in the body. It's not an analytical brain thought experience. And so that energy needs to be moved out of the body where it's trapped. There's a great book by a kind of a pioneer in the trauma world called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's by Bessel van der Kolk. And it was really one of the kind of real eye-opening books for people who treat patients with trauma, because we've been trying to treat them with therapy, with like cognitive behavioral. It's not very good outcomes. And what he found was that non-verbal, experiential, body-based therapies are what work for trauma. And so when we drum, we get out of our head, we get into our hands, we get into our body, because we feel the groove in our body and we make the beat in our body. And our body is a rhythm machine. So your heart beats in rhythm, you breathe in rhythm, all your organs, all the work they do all day long, the thing that organizes all that activity is rhythm. Your digestive system is rhythmic. Circulatory system is rhythmic. Circadian rhythm. Ambulatory, so we walk in rhythm, we talk in rhythm, we chew in rhythm, we scratch in perfect rhythm. Everybody scratches an itch in perfect rhythm. In our culture, we have a story about rhythm. Like some of us have it and some of us don't, because we've observed different people can play instruments better than others and different people can dance better than others. That's really where you're like, oh yeah, that guy, he's got no rhythm. But dancing is not rhythm. Dancing is coordination. Coordination is related to rhythm, but it's not the same. It's much more complex. So every body, meaning every individual human body, runs on rhythm. You are a rhythm machine. And so that's easy to tap into when taught properly. And I routinely, when I'm speaking to, at a keynote or at an organization, the first thing I do is I bring out egg shakers and everybody gets an egg shaker and I don't talk. And I just walk out and I just start shaking. And then I just invite them with my other hand to start shaking with me. And within 4 beats, everybody in the room is shaking into one rhythm. Yep. And then I change it. And within 4 beats, everybody's back in one rhythm. I change it again. Everybody's back in one rhythm. And if I start to speed it up, everybody speeds up together. And if I count them out, everybody stops together. And I use 0 words. And whether it's 8 or 800, I've had, a ballroom full of 800 people shaking together and into one rhythm. So they become one connected body of rhythm within 60 seconds. And I could try to tell them that with words, but they wouldn't believe me. So I just show them with their own bodies. And then they're suddenly like, hey, how do you do, what just happened? How'd you get that out of me? Like it was like a trick, like I snuck the rhythm out of them. And it's important for us to understand that we have these cultural conversations that aren't necessarily based in truth. And we just kind of pass them on. And one of them is that you have to have talent to play music, and that talent is a gene, that you have a music gene and I have a music gene and you don't, or blah, blah, blah. And it's just not true. Every human body runs on rhythm. So all we do is we just kind of put an instrument in the way of that natural rhythm, and suddenly people are musical. And that's a really great metaphor. It's very empowering for people who have been told they can't carry a tune in a bucket or they can't keep the beat. For them to suddenly feel successful at music for the first time with no instructions is a very empowering experience for them.
That's amazing. It's like almost like you're a magician and bring the power of music. I like.
Are you ready to be an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurs are confident, positive, creative, resourceful, and resilient people who are faced with problems and they create solutions. If this sounds like you, tune in to Founders Time to learn more and start your journey.
Totally. And I, as a clinician and as somebody who like does work that's evidence-based, it's based on research, like I'm not allowed to use the word magic from the stage, but it's totally magic because, you know, it comes from nowhere. It's like not there and then it's there and nobody sees it and then they see it. And people are suddenly doing things that their conscious mind is convinced they can't do. And so the only way you can describe it in a fun way to people is music is magic. It's completely magic. It unlocks things, awareness and doors and abilities that previously were unavailable. And one great example is the Congresswoman Gabby Giffords from Arizona. When she was shot in the head, she lost her ability to talk because of the trauma to her brain. And
I remember that.
Music therapy was the technique to get her to speak again. Because when we sing, we use the entire brain. When we speak, we only use a very small part of the brain. And because the brain is a network that's designed with all kinds of backup roads in case one is blocked for construction, or in this case, destruction, you can use music that kind of, it will circumnavigate around damaged areas of the brain for the brain to be able to produce a result. So what we do in what's called neurological music therapy is we will teach stroke patients and trauma patients, TBI patients, to sing their requests to the nurses. And they're able to sing their requests and communicate through song first, and then we generalize it back to speech later. And it's magic. I mean, it's just like, we have beautiful case studies. There's some great videos online of people who stutter like you wouldn't believe, right? They just can't, they're barely able to have a conversation. Their stutter is so bad. And then someone starts to play guitar and they go to sing and they sing perfectly. No stutter during the song. And it's just like, you're kidding me. Like complete magic. And what music does to the human brain, it's unlike anything else in nature. It's a very unique stimulus. And so this is what's so important for people who are struggling with any kind of brain injury, is that music, just to process music, it takes every subregion of the brain to work together. So if there's a damaged area, the rest of the brain kind of turbocharges to fill in the gaps. And so people with developmental or neurological damage or disability, it recruits every area to work together in concert to produce a result. And so you'll see people can do things on music that they couldn't do without it. And so some perfect examples are patients with dementia or Alzheimer's who have no access to their memory can sing a song in its entirety from memory from 70 years ago and then give you a detailed story about where they were when they used to listen to that song. And they don't know where they are today. But that complete memory is intact, and the song was able to build a bridge to where that memory was. And we see it all the time in our clinical work. For patients with trauma, it allows them to work out the energy in their body without having to talk out that energy, because language sometimes is a barrier. It's a toll booth, because we need the right words and then we need the right listener. So the first part, the right words, like, energy and motion, emotion, this is from John Bradshaw, emotion is just short for energy and motion. So we feel energy in our body, and then we try to translate the energy into language. And sometimes we have a match and we can describe the energy in our body to another person, and then they have been able to understand what that's like in their body and use the same translation. Many, many times it gets lost in translation. What is upsetting to me may not be upsetting to you. What's hot and like the language we use, it's not always the same. It gets lost in translation. And then therefore we can't get it out. The second problem we have is the listener. the person who can listen without taking things personally, getting upset, getting triggered, getting offended, being a mandated reporter. And so it becomes very challenging, because if I'm trying to express my emotions, which just means get them out, and I'm talking about me, and then you get upset or you take it personally, well, then I'm left feeling like, well, I can't talk to you about this stuff because I love and care for you and I don't want to see you upset. So I can't talk to you. Or a teen will, or a young adult will talk to a therapist about feeling like they want to end it all because they're just so tired. And then that therapist is a mandated reporter, which means that if that person talks about causing harm to themselves or others, they're required by law to report that incident. And those patients oftentimes end up in a 72-hour hold where they're in a hospital, a lockdown unit of a hospital against their will for 3 days. Now, the brain is smart. The first time that happens to somebody, they look really closely at what happened and they go, how do I have that not happen again? Because that was terrible. And they learn to stop telling people what's really going on inside, even if they do have the words. They start to disconnect because they don't want to cause trouble to others, cause trouble for themselves. They don't want to spend a weekend in a horrible behavioral health unit of a hospital. And so language can really become a barrier to patients with trauma to express that emotion. But when we drum, when we sing, when we strum, when we move and engage our body, we move that energy out of our body. And I have had just these most beautiful sessions with clients with trauma drumming, and you can see them playing their drum and they are working out that experience on the drum, taking it out on the drum. And we don't need to get into the details afterwards, because oftentimes when we're done, they'll just sit back and sigh, just like, ah. And you can see that the energy's gone. So we don't need to talk about it, because all we're going to do is bring it back. So we let it go. And so music can be a beautiful, beautiful tool when used correctly to be able to express that emotion.
That's amazing. And so true. You know, I think that's the actual time when I listen to music that I can chill, I can relax. And
Yes.
it's so powerful.
Yep. Yeah, our nervous systems are like a 3-speed bike. So we've got like a first gear, a second gear, and a third gear. The first gear is our chill gear, where we're supposed to be most of the time. And by design, over, millennia, tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of years, occasionally we have to outrun a tiger or fight off another tribe. Occasionally, that's appropriate. So when that happens, our nervous system has a second gear and our body goes into a completely different mode. Our blood changes its chemistry. We produce more blood sugar so that our muscles can run faster and punch harder. Our digestion stops. The brain changes gears in terms of which part of the brain is like making decisions. And our adrenals, our hormones in our body, we pump out like a significant dose of like adrenaline and cortisol and norepinephrine in order for us to be able to respond to the challenge of the moment. And then when all else has failed, if you've ever watched a nature video and you see the gazelle get caught by the tiger, it freezes. It looks, and it goes into shock. That's the third gear. That's the trauma gear. And that's when the nervous system shuts down. And that's why people always wonder, like, why did that person freeze? It's because they had moved from chill past fight or flight into the third gear, which is freeze. That's Mother Nature's gentle way of us leaving the planet without it being horrifying. Because you never notice any of those animals in those videos being torn up, screaming, trying to drag themselves away. They shut, their nervous system turns off. They go catatonic. And as a kid, I always wondered, like, are they acting? Like, are they playing dead, And kind of, sort of, yeah. Their body is shutting down. And our bodies do the same thing because we're animals. We're mammals. We're dressed nicely. Here we are on technology, but at the end of the day, we have a nervous system that's evolved over millennia to respond in 3 ways to the world around. Went into freeze mode. It can be really challenging because it can get stuck very easily, and it can get stuck in this fight flight as a chronic place where they're hyper vigilant. They're worried about that at any given moment, anything could be a threat. And there's no reason that a logical person's looking around saying there's no reason for you to be on edge or feel threatened right now. What's the matter? Well, the matter is that their 3-speed bike is stuck in second gear. And so that's why people with trauma will perceive danger where there isn't any, because their nervous system is in the wrong gear, and the nervous system is generating the fear response, the fight flight response, not the outside world. It's actually an inside experience. And that's why it's so hard for people with trauma, because they'll say, I feel like I'm going crazy, because there's no good reason why I feel this way. In other words, there's no signal from the environment signaling danger, except I feel danger in my body. Why? Well, my nervous system is stuck in second gear. And one of the beautiful things about music is music resets the nervous system. It allows the nervous system to turn off that stress response and move from fight or flight back to chill. And so it's a great tool for people when they're feeling that danger, when they're feeling that anxiety, and there's no good reason. That's their nervous system stuck. And one of the things they can reach for is music.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It should be used more often in the treatment of PTSD and anxiety and dementia. I think it's not used enough.
Well, unfortunately, Big Pharma can't make any money off of it. So it doesn't, and that's not to be like boo, because Big Pharma has its place in the world, but because there's also a profit motive in research and development for treatment of anything in the United States and around the world, there isn't really a profit motive with music. And our culture thinks of music in an entertainment and an educational context first and second. So to think of it in a therapeutic context, and because it's subjective, because it's art, what might calm you down might trigger someone else.
Yeah.
And so we can't standardize it. So I can't say, here's Michael Bolton. Everybody listen to Michael Bolton. Because some people will be like, yes, perfect. And some people will be like, And if you said to me, like, listen to the Gypsy Kings, I'd be like, yes, please. I will listen to the Gypsy Kings all day long. And some people will be like, if I hear one more Spanish guitar being strummed, I will go crazy. And so, one person's Beyonce is another person's Bach or Brahms or Beethoven or Beastie Boys. And so that's part of the challenge, is to teach people to understand that when it comes to turning off your nervous system, the music you reach for, it's very subjective. It's very personal. Your music, you trust your music. You've had a long history. It's done great things for you. It's never betrayed you. It's never hurt you. And that's how my music is for me. But if we switched music, then that goes away, right? So it's not as easily deployed in a way that someone could, unfortunately, make a profit. So sadly, it's on the sidelines. There's good work that's being done. And I can say that more and more music therapy is being used for the treatment of dementia and PTSD, and music is being used more and more. And yet at the same time, there are only 8,000 music therapists in the United States compared to 900,000 psychologists and psychiatrists. So it's going to be a while before we're prescribing music as often as we're prescribing antidepressants.
And I think, we have to make people feel it, feel the power of the music. That's how they're going to ask for it.
Yeah. It's definitely something that you can talk about, but it doesn't replace what it feels like when you experience it. And one of the beautiful things is that I have never introduced music to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So lucky for me, I'm working with something that people already have a good relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps a lot. And that helps the music therapist work with a client a lot, because the music's like the mutual friend. And so, when you and I, if we meet through someone we both know, we'll talk more quickly. We'll open up more quickly. If we met on the street and we had no mutual friend, it would take longer. We keep our barriers, our character armor, our social armor up longer. But if we meet through somebody that we really know and we really like and we really trust, we'll start talking right away. We'll be like, oh, blah, 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 great. And we'll start right away opening up. And that's the beauty of a music therapist, has that connection and understands the power of that connection. And people will open up to me, even if they're not listening to the music. If we're just talking about music, they'll open up, because the music, which is the thing they trust, is in the space. And we bring it into the space. And as a music therapist, I'm not a performer in that context. I'm not a teacher in that context. I'm a therapist, which means my ego stays at the door. I don't bring my ego in. It's just me as a kind of a friend, music, and you. And then that's a very safe relationship. You don't feel less than, or like I know more, or I can do more, because a teacher, they know more. A performer can do more, but a friend, you don't have those kind of feelings. So people will open up about things, even if just music is present, even if it's not on. And I've had patients in the hospital say they don't want to do music therapy, but then 30 minutes later, we're talking about music, and they're like a kid. They're all lit up. They're talking about concerts. They're talking about their favorite record. And they're like, I feel better already. We haven't even listened to any music and I feel better. And I'm like, magic. Although I can't say that. That's what.
But it is magic, and it's powerful. It definitely helps, I used to listen to a Scottish music. I'm Cuban, but I love the Scottish music. I love the violin and the way that it's so hyper, and it really relaxed me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny how we develop our taste.
Yeah.
It's like flavor. You develop taste for certain types of foods. You develop a taste for certain types of music. And I always tell everybody that that's why God invented headphones, so that I can enjoy my music and you can enjoy yours. And, they don't have to, mix or mingle.
And that's true. Like every music is different. Because when I listen to salsa or merengue, that's the Cuban music, it makes me want to dance.
Yes.
Don't relax me.
No, it's very stimulating.
Yes.
And sometimes you're in the mood for that, but sometimes
you want to
that's
chill.
not what you need. That's right. You want to chill. You need to chill. Your body wants to calm down. And so you need the right music at the right time. And that's another thing that's important. I try to teach people is that listen to your body. Your body knows what it needs. Your body is infinitely intelligent. And so listen to it. Don't listen to your mind. Your mind is like the attic of your house. It's got cobwebs. It's got boxes. It's got spiders. It's got nails. It's uninsulated. It's crowded up there. It's just a terrible place to try to move around. You bump into sharp objects really easily, but your gut and your heart, by comparison, smooth, soft, gentle, clear. And the analogy is, think of your body like a house. The first story is your gut, and the first floor of any house is kind of like, everything comes in and out. It's fast moving, smooth surfaces, very clear. Second story of most houses is where people sleep. It's softer. It's oftentimes where you have carpet and you have bedding. It's intimate. It's gentle. It's quiet. And then you have the attic. And nobody goes in the attic because there's a good reason why you don't go in the attic. It's terrible up there. But in our culture for the last 500 years, we've really loved the idea of thinking about things. So we spend a lot of time up in our head. There's a field of medicine now called cardiac neuroscience, which has been doing really, really profound research for probably 5 years now that shows that there is the gut and the heart are both centers of thought in the body, and that the neural transmissions in the gut and the heart are happening 1 million times faster than the neural transmissions in the brain. 1 million times. Now, this is why books like Blink by Malcolm Gladwell took off. Malcolm Gladwell wrote an entire case study about listening to your gut before this research was ever commonly known. It's still not even commonly known, but we always want to be listening to our gut and our heart. It's smarter, it's faster, it's clearer. When we get confused, it's because we're listening to our mind, right? And so when we are considering what music to reach for, we want to listen to our body. What does our body need? And your body will tell you. If you play the wrong type of music, your body will respond. You'll feel it, like you'll start to constrict, you'll tense up if it's the wrong music for what your nervous system needs in the moment. If it's the right music, your body will actually expand and relax because your nervous system is getting a match to what it needs. So you do you. So you listen and you notice what music you reach for and how does it make you feel afterwards. And like a scientist, you pay attention and you take notes, and you'll start to discover the right and wrong music for you to be listening to when you're agitated, when you're anxious, when you're depressed, when you're, too overstimulated and you want to come down, or maybe you're too low and you need something to pick you up. Those aren't the same two musics right there. So that's an important thing for us to all remember, is that music is not equal. Not all music is the same. And it's very important for us, for the music that works for us in the moment, and to pay attention to our body's response. If it makes your body feel better, do it again. If it makes your body feel worse, take it off the list. There's a universe of music to listen to. That may not be the right music at the right time for the right situation.
That's so cool and so true. And I think it relates to being an entrepreneur as well, because as an entrepreneur, we have to trust our gut. We have to trust our instinct every single situation.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we forget.
Yep. We get wrapped up in our head and we analysis paralysis and we overthink things. And so it's very easy to do. And it's reinforced is to not listen to your gut, not listen to your heart. You're supposed to think things through. There's all kinds of language in our culture to try to reinforce us to use our brain, the center of rational thought. Our brain is like an old CPU. It's an old computer that can't keep up in the 21st century with technology and with culture. And so it is constantly overstimulated. It is constantly triggered. Chronic stress is an epidemic that existed before COVID. In the United States, in the last 3 years, the life expectancy dropped 3 years in a row because of the number of suicides and overdoses in the United States of America. So we were already in a mental health crisis before the pandemic. And what's going on there is we have a nervous system that can't keep up with the world around it. So I'm triggered. Some of the tigers of the 21st century. My phone can be a connection tool, but it can also be a stress trigger, right? So because in my phone is the outside world that I have no control over. And I can compare this myself against this idealized world in my phone, meaning like social media, for example, is an idealized world. It's not the real world. So whatever I post on social media, I choose to post, which means ultimately at the end of the day, it's inauthentic. And even if I post no filter, that's inauthentic. That's me trying to show you how authentic I am. So, but we buy into it like it's the truth. And so it's a catch-22. And then we compare ourselves to it. You lose 2 pounds, you go online, someone just claimed they lost 20. Oh, great. You do something good in your business, someone goes in on, like a entrepreneur group, they just 10x'd the result you did. And you're like, oh, geez, I stink. You show pictures, you're all like, work-life balance, and you show pictures of you with your kid at the park, and then someone shows a picture of their kid in like another continent, and like they're being digital nomads, and they're showing their kid, and you're just like, I can't keep up, I can't win. And so what they found was in research, maybe last year, if it was 2018 or 2019, Temple University published some research that showed that with teens, 30 minutes a day of social media activity causes clinical depression. It's not correlated, it causes. And for them to be able to use that word in research, it needs to be like really like a smoking gun needs to be present. And it's because we don't have any control over that world, and it's not authentic. And we compare our real inner experience with this artificial outer experience. And it's very, it's upsetting to us. And that's just one of the many ways that our current life triggers the stress response daily. And so we're just not designed. So we need to be reaching for music as a part of our own mental health hygiene, like brushing your teeth, because music will turn that stress response off. So for your listeners, the 3 things they want to do, they either want to make music along with the music they listen to. That's if you're worried, if you're struggling with like flashbacks or depression or rumination over the past, or you struggle with anxiety about the future, you want to tap or snap or clap or hum or rap or sing or shake or dance along with the music so that you're engaging your body. Because when you move your body is in the present moment. And so when you're paying attention to moving your body, you're moving your body in the present. So now you are paying attention to the present. If you just listen to music, it can take you all over the place, in and out of the present moment. Take you to the past, take you to the future. And your brain knows that it has no control over the past or the future. The only place it has control is in the present. In the present, I can control what I put in my mouth. In the present, I can control how I move my body or whether I move my body. In the present, I can direct my focus. I can decide what I'm going to focus on. I have that ability. I can change my focus. I can literally pay attention to one thing and then consciously decide to pay attention to something else. Now, the only place I have control over that is in the present moment. So we want tools that help us stay present. And when we make the music, we engage our body with the music, then we're present. I understand not everybody's in the mood to make some music. So the second way that you can reach for it is to just listen to it. But what you want to do is you want to create what I call a power playlist. It's 3 songs that inspire you so that when you're feeling low or stressed or overwhelmed, and you put on this playlist, you go for a walk and you walk to the beat of the playlist. By the time you get back, it's like 10 minutes roughly. By the time you get back, your nervous system will have reset. Now, for an entrepreneur, that's super important because you need to be creative on a daily basis. You're creating your business, you're creating your content, you're creating. When you're stressed, you're reacting. So when you listen to music, it actually turns the reactivity off and it turns the creativity on. So that's super important for entrepreneurs. And then, as we have already talked about, for people with trauma, to be able to turn off that stress response when it's stuck in that trigger mode, to be able to turn that off, the power playlist will allow that. And then the third thing you can do is relax to it. But there's something very important about relaxation music. You want music that has a perceptible beat. What do I mean by that? You need to be able to tap your finger, breathe, tap your foot to the music. If there's no beat, that can be very triggering for people with trauma. And what do I mean by that? The kind of music that you listen to, like if it was like a traditional meditation or spa music where it's like, wow, wow, and it just kind of drones, that's actually not healthy for the nervous system, particularly for people with trauma. It's very triggering. And you want to have music that has a perceptible beat because your body will ground to the beat. So the relaxation playlist that I created, it's called a Relaxation Vacation. I use my classical guitar rather than a keyboard so that the strings create this perceptible beat that your nervous system can slow down to. And then I walk you through your past to a memory that's safe, that's healthy, where you felt connected, happy, healthy, safe. And I walk you through that memory like you were there. And then you get to bring those feelings back into the present to take on whatever the stress is. Because sometimes the stress is in the present, let's be honest. But the relaxation vacation will allow you to be able to access a moment in your past where you were at your peak, and then bring that state back into the present moment where you need it the most. So for your listeners, you can just go to my website, which is just timringgold.com. And you'll see right on the page, you'll see my bald head. It'll say reach for music. And then there's a question. It says, would you like to take a relaxation vacation? And your answer will be, why, yes, Tim, I would love to, because I can't take any other kind of vacation right now. And so you'll put your name and your email address in, and you'll check your spam folder and your promotions folder for an email with a link from me. And then you'll get to download that relaxation vacation in 3 different ways. You'll get my voice with my guitar, you'll get just my guitar, and you'll get just my voice. Any of those ways, reach for that, and that will turn the stress off also.
Yes, I already downloaded.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm a fan. It definitely works. So I 100% recommend it to all the listeners.
Nice. Thank you.
Any other projects that you're working on right now currently?
I have a podcast also called Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold, and it's instrumental guitar music. And I was inspired because I'm a healthcare worker to support other healthcare workers and people who are like frontline dealing with the stress that they're dealing with. So I wrote a bunch of music over a 40-day period during lockdown. And then I've been releasing a new song every week or every other week. And it's for anybody, but it's specifically if you are working outside of the home, anybody can use this. But why I designed it was if you're working outside of the home in a stressful environment, you're oftentimes stressed before you even get to work because you're anticipating it. So you listen to the podcast on the way in, and it turns off the stress response so that you can operate more powerfully wherever you're working. And then on your way home, you turn it on and you listen to it, turns off the stress response on your way home from work so that you can be present to those you love when you get home. Because one of the big problems for entrepreneurs, especially people who are their own boss, they don't punch out mentally. And so they're physically back at the house, but their mind is still at work. And they're still running through what they've got to do or what they went through during the day. And their family has been trained not to try to engage with them anymore because it's a lost cause, because they're always looking at their phone. So that is just because they're stuck in a stress response. They're trying to find a way to escape. The other problem is that alcohol sales have gone up by over 155% during lockdown. So people are trying to medicate these feelings of overwhelm and all of the stress. So they reach for beer, they reach for wine, they reach for, hard substances, but then they also reach for their fridge, their pantry. A lot of people are putting on the COVID-19. That's, like the freshman 15, or they've put on the COVID-19. Or they're combining them. So they'll sit on the couch with food and the Netflix button, and they'll combine the food with the Netflix in order to try to escape. And so it's just the nervous system doing its job. We're all just trying to cope with the stress by escaping. So we want to reach for music instead, because it can turn off that stress on the way home. And then when you get home, you're not craving the alcohol or the sugar or the salt. You're not craving the screens, and you're not thinking that you're present. So you can actually be present to your family.
That's amazing. And so needed right now. I think everybody's just, they're stuck at the home. What it used to be the comfort now is just another place they are. It becomes the work, it becomes the home, the family. You have little kids,
Totally.
It's always hard to handle.
Absolutely. The stress around here, like I work from home, my wife's my business partner. She works from home. Our kids, they're now homeschooled because we're on lockdown. They're not going back. They were, home in the spring. They're now home over summer vacation, no summer camps mostly. And then they'll be home this fall. There's no escape. Like there are times when I'm just like, I am going to jump out of my skin because there's literally no escape, and that's really overwhelming for people. And so that's why having a music practice of some sort where you just play with music in some way on a regular basis. One of the things that I have a membership program for people who just want to use music for healthcare, like self-care. We have a play planner, and it's a planner just like a regular planner, except in this planner, you're actually writing out instead of your work plan for the week, you're writing out your play plan. Like Monday, I'm going to do a Facebook Live where I play. And then Tuesday, I'm going to record my podcast. Wednesday, I'm going to mix it. Thursday, I'm going to rehearse for Saturday. Friday, I'm going to rehearse for Saturday. On Saturdays, my neighbor puts out an extension cord and I plug in a little PA and I play outside on the curb. And people sit in the street and, like on the curb. And then like, that's my way of like being able to tour, being able to play live, is to just plug in an extension cord outside. But I've got a weekly plan for how I'm going to reach for music. And because now it's in existence, it's more likely to happen than if I just leave it in my head. Because when I leave it in my head, like any good habit, it just, it disappears. It goes away. Where does it go? It's also magic.
Yeah.
Watch this good habit disappear. Poof.
You have to practice to make it perfect, right?
Permanent. Yeah, that's right. So having things in existence, having physical reminders for things, and entrepreneurs are like gnats, our attention span is usually really short. And so you need to keep things in existence. So having a play plan has been a breakthrough for a lot of clients of mine. They're just like, I never thought about music like yoga. And it's like, yeah, like you make time for your yoga practice, consider all of the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual benefits of a music practice. You did it when you were a teen. You can go 2 days without music when you're a teenager. No teen I've ever met went 2 days without music. You take a phone away from a teenager, that's the fighting words right there, right? Oh. So we and then for some reason we just move beyond it. We get busy with other things, but that the benefits of it are so important, and it's so easy to reach for music because we all have cell phones now. We all have unlimited access to free music on demand. Thanks, YouTube, right? You can go to YouTube and you could type in any song from any artist you've ever listened to, and there's either going to be a recorded version, a karaoke version, or a live version, or all three, or a cover. There's going to be something there for you, and you just needed internet access, and you might have to watch a commercial. But then, we pay for the services these days, and we have Spotify and we have Apple Music, $10 a month. I have like all the music almost ever recorded at my fingertips. It's never been easier for us to be able to reach for music. So there's really no excuse.
And going back to yoga, they actually use music to reinforce the practice.
Of course. Absolutely. And if they knew, if they understood, it's like in neurologic music therapy, the beat primes the body for movement. And if they combined and moved to the beat in yoga, like you do in salsa, or you do in what's the Zumba, right? Like Zumba. An aerobic workout to dance music. They combine the dance moves to the beat. That is really smart because your brain doesn't perceive the effort the same way when music is present. So you'll actually do more work physically when your brain is on music than without. And so that's why people can dance for an hour in Zumba class. And if you took the music away and you did the same exact thing, you'd watch them. They would drop over the course of that hour. They would drop like flies in that room. So yoga would be really smart if they realized that, the beat harnesses this whole motor network in the body, and your clients could do way more work during a yoga session if they combine it to the beat instead of having music on that has no beat, or oftentimes they have you moving in flow and they're listening to music with a different beat than your body's trying to move to. And unfortunately, as a clinician that knows all this, I find it very challenging to go to yoga classes because every yoga teacher is their own DJ and they don't understand the power of rhythm. They just haven't been taught in their tradition how to harness it properly. So to those of you who are yogis and you move to the beat, good for you. And to those of you who are teachers who have figured that out, good for you. And those of you who are active in yoga and don't do that, I strongly encourage you to harness the power of rhythm and of the beat. It will immediately accentuate your practice.
Awesome. And so many tidbits. So what are some golden nuggets you have for fellow entrepreneurs? Maybe people that want to go into music therapy, or they want to practice music. There's so many musicians in the world right now.
Yeah, well, everybody's musical. So here's the things I'll share with you. Whether or not you consider yourself a musician, you are musical. So you can make music today. And whether or not you feel like you can sing well, you can sing. 97 out of 100 people can sing. Only 3 out of 100 are tone deaf. The rest are just untrained. It would be like trying to throw a ball as a grown-up with your opposite hand, having never practiced. It would look a little funny. You wouldn't do it very well, but with time and practice, you'd be able to throw the ball. Same goes with the voice. So everybody is musical. And so you find the way that you can engage your body with music that works for you. It's immensely beneficial. And then to my entrepreneur colleagues out there, you are rarely on track as an entrepreneur. Most of the time, you're off track. And so you have to remember, it's not about being on track. It's how you relate to being off track that ultimately will determine whether you're successful, because you'll have a story in your head that either goes, there's something wrong, and it's either the world or me when you're off track. Or you could have a story like, ooh, where are we headed? This is unexpected. This is like a little adventure. What opportunities are now going to show up? Either one is your interpretation of the events you're living through. And you ultimately get the last word, because as a human, you're the one who makes the interpretations of the events that you live through. So never make the mistake of inheriting someone else's interpretation of an event if it doesn't serve you. And never make the mistake of adopting a negative interpretation as the truth, because we all have had this experience where when something happened at first, it was really a bummer. And then in hindsight, we were like, hey, that was really a blessing in disguise. You can do that at any time as an entrepreneur. You can look at any situation through a different lens and apply conscious hindsight, and it will transform the situation while it's still happening. It's not easy, but it's possible. And so it's all about the mental game. Entrepreneurism is all a game that's played between the two ears. And when you win that game, all the stuff that you just execute, that's by comparison, it's cake. It's all the stuff going on in between your ears that stop you from mastering the skills and the executable things. And even at a time like this, I've watched my two coaches pivot and do their biggest years ever in the face of the pandemic. So it just reminds me that anything's possible if you have the right mindset.
Yeah, that's very true. You always need the right mindset, because, failure or success is how you look at it.
Yep.
Yeah. Failure can just be a learning step.
Totally.
It gives you the energy to come back, look at it from another perspective, and try again.
That's right. And ultimately, remember this, entrepreneurs, failure and success are both undefined. Mm-hmm. Who defines whether or not something's a failure? You. Who defines whether or not something's a success? You. That's it. I mean, they're particularly success more than failure, because failure, like, you can lose there are things like, if you don't sell enough units, you can lose your house or your car. I get that. But success, one man's success is another man's failure. One woman's success is another woman's failure. So we talk about this all the time, my wife and I, with metrics in business. Like, what do these numbers mean? So we just did a summit. We had X number of people register. A certain number of them became VIPs. A certain number of them joined our coaching program. From bigger to smaller numbers, right? But what do the numbers mean? Did we win the game? Did we lose the game? Was it a success? Was it not a success? Well, who's to say? Well, we are. We're the only ones who get to decide whether or not we won that game, because we're the ones who made the game up in the first place. No one else told us you have to run a summit. It's the game. We literally made the game up. We're like, let's run a summit. Okay. Well, let's define whether or not it's a success, because if we don't, chances are, with this old brain of ours, we're going to default to the negative in order to survive. And we're going to think, oh, we could have done better. We really probably didn't do as good as we could have. And then, like, one of our mentors told us, you did great. One of our mentors literally told us, they were like, Your numbers are great. And we're like, oh, they are? Okay. Same numbers. But one of our mentors who we trust told us that we were doing good in the game and made us feel a lot better about it. So it was very funny, like same situation. We felt totally different about it after having a good mentor. So I guess the last piece is don't try to do it alone, because as mammals, we don't do anything alone. So have a mentor and have a community, because without them, you're just going to decrease your odds of success tremendously. You might pull it off, but the odds are you won't. I mean, the overwhelming statistics for small businesses that they fail. They fail.